Boo! It's Anna!
And Jocelyn.
And you're listening to episode 8 of Escapeexpeditions, where we talk about escape room reviews, recommendations, and other industry nonsense.
And since it's October 1st, we decided, or maybe October 2nd, we decided to make our content extra spooky today.
Do we have a spooky version of the jingle? Stay tuned to find out!
Starting route to Escapeexpeditions. Continue listening for 45 minutes.
Alrighty, everyone. So, as Jocelyn said, in honor of the inauguration of the spooky season, we have decided to record an episode talking about some of our favorite spooky games.
Yes, these are in no particular order. We just like them all.
And as a disclaimer, like I've said multiple times, I'm not really like a spooky game person. If there is a choice between a scary game or a ghosty game or just another like more adventure themed, I will pick the adventure theme 9.5 out of 10 times.
Yeah, so as a result, we haven't played that many spooky, scary, horror games.
And also another side note, if you have played a really great spooky, scary game that you think that we should go play, please let us know, because sometimes I can get over the fact that I'm really scared if it's like a really great game. So if you have any recommendations, we would love to hear it.
We are definitely going to go try to play something that qualifies on the spooky scale for you guys before the month is out.
Just to quickly let you all know what games we're going to be talking about this episode, we're going to be talking about one of our number one favorites, Sasquatch at Escape the Netherworld in Atlanta adjacent area, Georgia. Then we're going to be talking about Asylum at America's Escape Game.
Save the Fleet at Escape U in St. Augustine.
And then finally, the game formerly known as Friday the 13th, which is now, I think, just called The Cabin, at Escape Room Live in Georgetown,
DC?
Yes. I was trying to think of what state it's in, and then I realized it's indeed not in a state. What is geography?
Yeah. So there are a couple more that we'll mention at the end, just to throw in there. But yeah, those are the ones that we are going to break down and completely review for you.
All right, I'm so excited. Let's get started.
Also, if you guys are only listening to this, you should click on the video just so that you can see how spooky our set looks. It's so cute.
The reason we are posting this a day late, even though we're recording on October 1st, is because we decided that in order to maintain the spooky vibe, we needed to make our studio area spooky as well. It's very cool, and our cats love it. First, we're going to talk about Jocelyn's number one favorite game, which is
Sasquatch.
But are any of you surprised that Jocelyn's favorite game is Sasquatch? Have we not mentioned this a few times? Did we not spend 10 minutes talking about this in episode 1?
Yeah, but we haven't reviewed it, so I thought it deserved that.
No, we actually were listening back to what we said about Sasquatch earlier today from episode 1 to make sure that we don't repeat anything. And we literally just spend like 5 to 7 minutes just saying, it was amazing. It was great. Loved it. 10 out of 10. And I'm like, okay, so we do need to review it kind of more in depth because that was all hype, no substance.
Yes.
But anyway, are you going to tell us the story?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to ask.
Mm-hmm.
You and your friend set out to go camping one weekend in a very remote area. As you round a bend in the road, the car crashes into a massive tree that has fallen in the path. Cell phones don't work in the area.
Of course not.
But you are able to call the local ranger station on a walkie-talkie. The ranger says there is a cabin very close to where you are located, and as night falls, you hike through the dark woods in that direction. Suddenly, you see the cabin ahead. When you arrive, the door is wide open and the lights are on. Then, strange howls and growls come from the tree line, so you can rush into the cabin and slam the door. An excited call comes over the radio. This game is moderate in difficulty. Fun for both new and experienced escape game players.
I would agree.
All games are recommended for 4 or more players unless they have solid escape game experience.
So, as the story mentions, after all of you escape this car crash completely unscathed, it's literally just a plot device to get you somewhere in the middle of the woods. The story begins with you already in the cabin. So that's where the game begins. You're in a dilapidated cabin in the middle of the woods, and there are strange, like I said, howling and growling noises around. It's also kind of a rundown cabin in the sense that, like, nothing really works.
And in the same way this says, you are able to call the local ranger station on a walkie-talkie, otherwise known as your in-character game master.
Which is one thing that we did mention in the first episode, that the immersion factor was through the roof. Yes. And one of the reasons is because of this integrated clue system with the walkie-talkie ranger situation.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people hear walkie-talkie and automatically think that that's a horrible idea, but it worked very, very well in this game.
Right. A lot of escape game players, enthusiasts, owners are 100% anti-walkie-talkie, but I mean, if it works in this space, I don't think that there's a problem with it.
Yeah, I think it depends on the scenario and the walkie-talkie.
Yeah, sometimes it's very difficult to hear or understand what people are saying through walkie-talkies, especially if you're like in a high-pressure situation and you want to hear what someone is saying for your clue, and you just can't like make out what it is that they're trying to tell you, and you have to like ask them to repeat, and then they're running out of time, and the walkie-talkie is just crappy. That I can understand is the worst, but that was not the situation in this game.
Yeah, we can understand perfectly what was being communicated. Also, it sounded like it was coming from a walkie-talkie radio, which makes sense because it was supposed to be from the game's perspective versus like a voice of God situation.
Yeah.
Which would have been more immersion breaking, I think.
The story that they tell you before you actually get into the game kind of doesn't really mention a Sasquatch at all. That's one of the things I really liked about this story, is that they basically give you the bare minimum and then let you figure out what's going on as the story unfolds during the game. And it actually leads to a pretty epic climactic story ending at the end.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, I know. I kind of want to, I don't want to spoil anything, obviously. Yeah. But this was like one of the most incredible story endings of any game I think that we've ever played. And it was just so mind-blowing to me that what actually happened, and it was nothing that you would expect to happen just based purely on the story they tell you going in. And I love that. Like, I love a good surprise. And this game definitely had that.
One of the reasons why this game is my number one game is a thing that you guys have heard me say before, is that I love that the story develops as you're playing it. You feel like you're an active participant in the story, and what you think is going to happen, or what you think the stakes are, or what you think the story is and the end of the game is nothing like what it actually is. And that is really cool, discovering what the truth is, and you are the reason that the truth is happening.
Right, yeah, I love that in a game too, where you can clearly see how your actions, which in, you know, the looking at it from a third-party perspective, the puzzles you're solving throughout the game, which when you're playing the game, the things you do to progress are directly impacting the way that the story is unfolding.
Right.
And that is super cool.
All right, anything else you want to say about story? Except that it was awesome.
No, I think we pretty much said that it was awesome in a bunch of other words.
Yeah. All right, so next is production value, right?
Next is actually immersion, but we pretty much have nailed it based on what we said about the story, I think.
Yeah, the immersion.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of it applies. Everything that we just said, listen to it again, except every time we say story, insert the word immersion.
There you go. There you have it. That's our review. We're done. Yeah. Signing off for this episode. No. Okay, yeah, we can move on to production value.
The production value is through the roof.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons it's so great overall at this venue is that the Netherworld company as a whole has been in the business of making incredible state-of-the-art, world-renowned haunted houses for so many years that aspect to them is already like ingrained in who they are as a company. you should always expect incredible production value from anything that the Netherworld people create.
Yeah, the other game that we played there also looked phenomenal. And they have 2 more games that I'm sure also look phenomenal.
We've never participated in their haunted houses, but we do know like how famous they are. Obviously, I'm the reason we've never participated in any of their haunted houses.
Maybe we will.
I'm working up to it, okay?
Yeah.
I go to Halloween Horror Nights a lot, and that's kind of,
That's haunted house adjacent.
Right, yeah, that's on the way there. But anyway, my point, okay? Yes. My point is that they're experts at this. It looks beautiful. End of story.
Yeah, and you start in a cabin, like the story says. It really feels like a cabin. It doesn't feel like a room that's painted brown.
Or a room that has wallpaper made to look like it's wood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks and feels so authentic. And everything that you're interacting with, the sounds, the potential threat of a Sasquatch.
All are very real.
Yeah.
And then you move along through the cabin, discovering different things along the way. And at the end, you end up outside the cabin, which you would think that if you're trying to escape the Sasquatch, you would not want to exit the cabin, but you just have to play the game and see how the story unfolds to figure out how and why you're doing such a crazy thing.
Yeah, but even the end indoor-outdoor situation, they pulled off in a way that blew my mind.
Amazing. Epic. Yeah. Like, you know that Lady Gaga gif where she's just saying, like, beautiful, talented, amazing, never been done, totally unique. That is the gift that I would use to react to this game. Just, that's all you need.
So yes, excellent production value.
Next is puzzles, which you can't have a great game just based on a good story and good production value. You have to have great puzzles.
Yeah, and this game had great puzzles.
The puzzles in this game were, in my opinion, a mix between kind of moderate and difficult. We played with a group of 4, and we were pretty much right there at the end with time, barely making it.
4 enthusiasts also.
Yeah, so I think it was fairly challenging.
And there was some tech. There was some Sasquatch magic disguised as tech. Mm-hmm. Or the other way around. Tech disguised as Sasquatch magic.
And I really like the way that the puzzles were integrated in with the cabin props. It didn't feel like they just put a random escape game puzzle inside of a really cool looking room. You actually were using the cabin decor
and
tools to solve the puzzles.
Yeah.
And you also, like I said before about how the cabin was kind of dilapidated and things weren't working, you had to find a way to get the lights on. You had to figure out a way to get like the electricity running and how to get things working again. So that was cool too.
Yeah, and those puzzles continued towards what the actual ending is and what you're trying to do. And the puzzles that you were doing were giving you different information as to what was actually happening. So that was cool.
There also are a lot of puzzles that involve the person who owns the cabin. Mm-hmm. And you're figuring out the story of what happened to them and who they are and all of that. And it kind of seems like they have some kind of Sasquatch obsession where in the first part of the cabin, there's like Sasquatch footprints and Sasquatch skulls.
Like memorabilia.
Memorabilia, yeah. And that it looked like maybe he was collecting or something like that. And those are also integrated into the puzzles, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, and this is more of a story thing, but you get an idea of whose cabin you're in and his personality and a little bit of his backstory through finding and experiencing different things that belong to him and like maybe like some of his accounts of what's been happening and stuff. So that's really cool from a story perspective. I know we're talking about puzzles, but I just thought of it.
Yeah, I mentioned last week, I remember that there are some games where you're trying so hard to focus on the puzzles and actually just finishing the escape game that the story elements kind of get lost on you. And that absolutely does not happen in this game because you need those integrated story components to solve the puzzles.
Right, exactly.
And I thought that was genius because you're actually getting your point across to the player by the task that you're making them do.
Right. And when most people talk about games that they've played, they're talking about the puzzles, a really cool thing that they did, a really cool thing that they saw. And when we talk about this game, we talk about how cool the story was. And that, to me, as a story nerd, is awesome.
Mm-hmm. As we've heard multiple times.
I'm just reiterating.
No, you're totally right. You're right. Okay, so I think we have alluded to this in so many different ways, but the fifth and final category is overall experience. Your thoughts?
It was horrible. We hated it.
It was so bad. Like, I can't believe that people actually go play
I would
this
not
game.
recommend it, actually.
No, terrible. Okay, hopefully our sarcasm came across in our tone of voice for people just listening to this. But no, from start to finish, the experience we had at Escape the Netherworld was incredible. The staff was great. The facility...
Yeah, they actually opened on a day that they are not open to let us play, so that was really cool. My highlights would be... Obviously, the storytelling shines in this game more than anything else. However, it is beautiful from the second that you are in it to the second that you are out of it.
And beautiful, she means disgusting, gross, cabin in the woods, believable.
Yeah.
That we're saying is beautiful because the set is so believable and great. But it's not like pristine, beautiful in that sense. In the traditional sense of the word beautiful.
It's very well done, is what I mean. 12 out of 10. I would go play it right now. I would play again.
Jocelyn literally tries to convince me probably 3 or 4 times a week to drop what we're doing and go drive there. Mind you, it's 6.5 hours away. She's like, yeah, we'll just go there, play 2 games, have dinner, come back. I'm like,
I said this today.
That is 20 hours out of a 24-hour day.
Yes.
That's insane. We might do it, though.
Stay tuned for me winning the argument eventually.
We'll see. All right, moving on to our second game of our spooky episode, which is Save the Fleet at Escape You. Which doesn't sound super spooky just by the name, but please tell us what it's about.
Battle the storm and guide your fleet to shore. Hurricane San Zenon has formed and it's making its way across Florida and off the coast of St. Augustine. It's a Floridian's worst nightmare. Your team of sailors is ordered to find some way to guide the shipping fleet to safety. Through driving rain and hammering waves, you manage to make landfall just steps from the famed St. Augustine lighthouse. Now hundreds of sailors depend on your quick thinking and puzzle-solving skills, of course, as you make your way to the top and operate the life-saving beacon. This room includes a 15-foot replica of the St. Augustine lighthouse and keeper house to add unparalleled realism to this history-based game. It says the scare level is only 4 out of 10.
So, the story that you read is kind of different from the story that I remember. I mean, we played this game, maybe a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
So, maybe it's changed since then, but what I remember from the game is that the lighthouse was haunted, and there was good ghosts and bad ghosts, and some of them were trying to help you throughout your story, and some of them were trying to confuse you, and your goal was to put the power back onto the lighthouse. But nevertheless, the objective is still the same. Get into the lighthouse, turn it on, save the fleet.
So as for story, it feels like you are a part of the story in this game as well.
Yeah, you begin outside of the house that's attached to the lighthouse, and you have to find your way in.
I remember it was a little spooky.
It was spooky. It was nighttime. I remember once you actually got into the little house, the clue system was integrated into different props that were actually inside the house, and the point was that the game master's voice was a ghost in the house, and they were like projecting their voices through different props in the game.
Yeah, which was really cool.
Yeah, and from what I remember, there was good ghost. Like I said, there was good ghost and there was bad ghost, and the bad ghost had like a very scary voice that was, I don't know, I'm very obviously not a voice actor. I can't do that kind of voice. But then the good voice was like a cute little girl voice, and she was trying to help you. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, and it was this is immersion and not story as usual.
That's why I changed the order of them, because we usually talk about them hand in hand.
Yeah. So the ghost that was talking to your game master, I'm assuming they had like a ghostly voice changer or something, because they were talking to us directly, like referencing what we were saying or what we were wearing or like making jokes and stuff like that. So that was really cool. It was very immersion story, hand in handness,
which is clearly one of our favorite things.
Yeah. I remember when we played, they were like making fun of our friends' shoes and stuff, so that was cool.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. And another thing I liked was that you actually see the story all the way through. You have to, you start outside, it's storming, nighttime, you get in the house, you get into the lighthouse, which was super cool on the inside. Really cool. And
things take a turn with the ghosts.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of ghosts. I don't like ghosts, guys. I really just, and I don't like the dark. But this game was fun, and it was kind of... We also told them that I was afraid of ghosts and afraid of the dark, so they kind of toned it down a little bit. I think it really depends on what game master you have and what level of scaredness you tell them that you like.
Yeah, they had some mini jump scares and stuff like that that could have been a lot more scarier than they were.
If they triggered them when I was standing right next to them.
Yeah, instead they scared me, which was fine.
But the website currently, today, October 1st, 2019, says that it's 4 out of 10, which is pretty low. So they might have changed all of that since we played. Nevertheless, if it's scare light and there aren't any ghosts involved, it's still a solid game all around.
I mean, I take 4 out of 10 to be kind of how we played it. It wasn't very scary. There were ghosts, but they were like more about goofing off and like having fun and like making fun of you and stuff. They weren't like horror, scary, actually scary ghosts.
Right. And we just kind of perused Escape U's Facebook page, and it seemed like last year they did a whole event for Halloween time where they upped the scare factor on their games. I'm not sure if they're going to do that again this year, but if it's something they do again and you are into that kind of haunted house, scary horror immersion thing, it would be a really cool thing to check out.
Yeah, especially because their games are great without all of that on top of it, so I'm sure they would be super fun if they were extra spooky.
So, in terms of our third category, production value, I would say it was pretty solid. What do you think?
Yeah, it wasn't like anything exceptionally exceptional, but it was pretty good. It did have the replica lighthouse thing, which is really cool if you are a St. Augustine history buff, or history buff in general, or just you like lighthouses or games.
Yeah, it is really cool. You walk into the lobby of Escape U and they have like the facade of the mini lighthouse, and it's all painted to look like the actual lighthouse. That was really interesting. In the game itself, like I said, you start outside in quotation marks, I'm doing air quotes, but you can see like the facade of the
lighthouse
house, and that looked really, really good and really convincing. And the inside of the lighthouse was also really cool because it had the whole contraption of what you needed to do to turn the lighthouse on, and that was really cool.
Yeah, I think the production value really shines at the end in the interior of the actual lighthouse. That part is really cool. I think because they built it the way that they did, it really feels like you are inside of like a cylindrical lighthouse thing and not like a square room that they are like, you are in a lighthouse now.
This is an office building that is supposed to be a lighthouse. There you go. Done.
And there were some really cool effects that happened that you do things in, like involving the power and the ghosts and all that stuff.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was fun.
Which is more of like a puzzly thing, but the production value really helped sell that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we can move on to puzzles.
For the most part, the puzzles did a really good job of being integrated with the story and with the theme. They weren't just puzzles thrown into a lighthouse. For the most part, they were relevant to what you were doing, especially at the end, the finale puzzle, where you are turning the power back on and dealing with the ghosts. Each step to that, I think, was really cool and had a really satisfying ending.
Yeah, I agree. And I also like when you were in the lighthouse house. I think we needed...
I like that it's called the lighthouse house.
It's probably not called the lighthouse house. What does it say?
The keeper house.
The keeper house. Well,
that's not as fun.
The keeper house. The lighthouse keeper house.
What were you saying about the house?
Yeah, another thing I really liked about the puzzles is that when you're in the second act of this game in the keeper house, you have to make use of all of the space, and really remember the story of what's going on in this scenario to help you with the puzzles.
Yeah, and also remember where you are located. Like, you are in a keeper house attached to a lighthouse, right? Remember what you're trying to do and, like, where you are spatially and narratively.
I always think it's funny how intentionally vague we are, because really people listening are probably like, what in the world are you trying to say?
We don't want to ruin it.
Yeah, exactly. We don't. So basically, I think what we're trying to say is we liked the puzzles. And there's a good mixture of tech puzzles, which I know a lot of people really like, and traditional lock and key puzzles. Puzzles that have nothing to do with locks and keys or boxes at all.
Yes, at all.
The mixture of all those things was really interesting and really fun.
Once again, I agree with you. How shocking.
I wanted to do a review about something where we disagree. We'll see if that ever happens.
All right, last is overall experience. We love Escape You. We love them so much that we drove 3 separate times to St. Augustine in the same week to play all of their games. I don't know why we didn't just drive once and play all 3 games. Maybe because that would have made too much sense.
I think the first time we went on a random Tuesday night and played their last game of the day, so we wouldn't have enough time to play all 3. And then the next time we went, we brought 2 friends with us.
Yeah.
And played the other 2.
No, we went 3 separate times.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We did go. That's exactly what you said.
I know.
Look, something I disagreed with you about, but it was just because I was wrong.
So yeah, we love them. And I like all 3 of their games. As far as the spooky element goes, Save the Fleet
was formerly, when we played, a spooky game.
May still be. I think it still is. Why would
Tell
they
us.
change it? It's essential to their game.
I don't know. But when we played, it was spooky. If it's no longer spooky, it's still good. We still recommend it. The other 2 games that they offer...
I think Asylum has a spooky element.
No.
You don't think so? It's spooky in your mind.
Asylum is like you're being thrown into a white padded cell and have to figure out why. I don't think that's spooky. I think it's just weird and creepy.
But you have to deal with your mind. That's spooky.
Maybe dealing with your mind is spooky.
Asylum scare me more than anything else. Like, as far as, like, go into this haunted house, go into this haunted hospital, go into this haunted asylum, go into this haunted dungeon, go into this haunted insert other building. Asylum is the scariest one.
That is a perfect segue to talk about our next game, which is Asylum.
That was unintentional.
You did that to yourself.
Yeah, so next we're talking about Asylum at America's Escape Game, not to be confused with Asylum at Escape You that we just briefly referenced.
Also not to be confused with any of the other Asylum-themed games we've ever played.
Which we were considering doing an entire episode that was just the Asylums.
Because we played about 5 different Asylum games. But this one stood out because it was very spooky.
Yes, so...
Ugh, even just their promo video is spooky to me. Alright, tell us the story.
Navigate the madness left behind at Oak Ridge Lunatic Asylum. Already sounds kind of scary. A suspicious fire engulfed the Oak Ridge Lunatic Asylum. 5 patients under the care of Dr. Rutger were presumed killed, but their bodies were never recovered. Dr. Rutger's late wife, Helen, made a deathbed confession. Her husband had a special room where he performed his darkest and unspeakable works. Navigate the madness in the remains of the Oak Ridge Lunatic Asylum and solve the case, if you can. Warning: this escape room uses dramatic special effects, including fog, lighting, sound effects, and jump scares known to cause fright.
One thing I don't like about these Asylum storylines is it always has to do with some kind of mad or crazy doctor. And as a future doctor, I am very offended by that.
Yeah, it's never like the patients have gone mad.
No.
Even though they are all mad. They're in an asylum.
It's always like, the doctor was doing crazy experiments on them. Whatever. Anyway, I know it's not real. You forgot to read the last line, which is, your group's mission will be to enter the remains of the asylum and unlock the secrets of Dr. Rutger's horrifying deeds.
I thought that was implied.
Well, not to people just listening. It's not.
I mean, what did you think the mission was going to be? Enter the asylum, find the secrets.
That's just because you know what a lot of asylum themes are. Anyway, that is what indeed what you do. You do enter the asylum and you do find the secrets.
Also, it's long gone, long past after the fire. So it's burned down Asylum.
Yeah, it's not even just like run down Asylum. It's run down, burnt, creepy, crispy Asylum. Okay?
That should be the tagline. This Asylum is crispy.
Crunchy, breaded and fried. So, in terms of story, I would say that, I mean, the story that you read is pretty accurate. In the context of the last two games we talked about, which are pretty story-driven, this one is not so story-driven.
Mm-hmm.
There is, like, a climactic story ending at the end. It doesn't really have anything to do with what you were told at the beginning, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, but it doesn't really develop or anything. It's just like, this is now happening.
Yeah, it's kind of just like, these are the puzzles that you're doing that are mildly Asylum-themed, but not all of them are really connected with the overarching story of finding out what happened to these patients or what the doctor did or whatever.
Yeah, which is kind of 50-50.
Which is, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just not one of our favorite ways to integrate story, which is to not integrate story.
We're big story people, okay?
Clearly. But if you're not, I mean, if it doesn't matter to you and you just want to go into a room and do puzzles, by all means.
Spooky puzzles.
Spooky puzzles.
Immersion. I feel like, aside from the puzzle integration, it is pretty immersive as far as spooky games go. I was pretty scared. We did play just the two of us, though, and you were pretty useless for most of it.
Yeah.
Which means
I can admit to that.
Which means I was, like, trying to play the whole game by myself.
Yeah.
And also convince you that ghosts are not real.
Listen, ghosts?
In this situation.
Okay. I'm not even gonna go there.
I don't mean all ghosts. I mean, we were clearly in a room with fabricated ghosts.
Okay, so the use of paint is good. And noises, soundtrack, lighting, camera, action.
What are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say that it's good, that it made me scared.
Oh, yeah. I think the scares are even more scary now, also.
Yeah, so clearly you can tell by the fact that I was not helpful. Actually, I was helpful. You just handed me the pieces of the things and I solved the things. It's just if there was a door to be opened or you had to put your hand in something scary, I made you do it.
Or any exploration at all.
Yeah. There's a creepy couch. I don't want to look in the creepy couch.
It was just a normal couch.
Creepy medicine cabinet. I don't want to look in there. Nope, not happening.
Clearly, we did not escape.
No, we did not. But we did make it to the final puzzle, and our game master was gracious enough to show us what would have happened if we actually finished. So we did get to see it through, which I appreciated. But no, we did not finish in time. It's also like an 8-person room, which doesn't really mean anything because we solve 8-person rooms all the time. But yeah, I was very scared, and we were moving at a turtle pace when we played this game. But we can move on to production value, which I guess kind of is a perfect transition because the production value was so good that I was very scared.
Yeah, the production value was good. It really felt Asylum-y. Soundtrack was great.
Soundtrack was creepy, which I guess is great.
Yeah, it was great.
For what they're trying to achieve. Also, from what we've heard from other people who have played this game, it might actually be scarier now than when we played. We played pretty close to when this game opened. And
Naturally.
I think, yeah, I know. If there's ever a new game that's opening within 30 minutes of us, we're literally there, like, within a few days of it opening. But anyway, my point is that they've had the game open for long enough that they have perfected the art of the scare in this game, I presume, from things we've heard. And if you're looking for a good scare, this is a very good option for you.
She's trying to say they have live actors now.
They're
rumored,
because what I heard, which obviously I cannot back up with fact, is that whenever there is one particular person working that day, there may or may not be an actor in the room, depending on if this person is willing to do it.
So maybe you'll get a scare actor, maybe you won't.
I don't know, but I would say if you're going to go play, be prepared for there to be one. And if you like that, then awesome, go play. It sounds like if you like jump scares and you like creepy people, this is the game for you.
I don't know why you would play it if you did not like that.
I mean, if you're me and you're obsessed with escape games.
Right, but you went because I wanted to go. Yeah, so as a disclaimer, there may or may not be a scare actor. If that's your thing, that's awesome. If not, just a warning.
Also, I want to add for production value that the first room of this game is so scary that one of the people that I went with the second time decided to not play after they walked in and saw the video and listened to the soundtrack and were in the room for less than 5 minutes. They were just like, nope, not gonna play. And they waited for us in the lobby. And that's fine. Just, if you need to know ahead of time, it's pretty scary. Also, I obviously don't want to say who this person is. But you know who you are. You, listening to this, driving to work. But anyway, love you.
That goes to show how immersive it is.
So now I want to move on to puzzles. And if you've ever played a game at America's Escape Game, you know that they have a mixture of different puzzles. There are some that are really cool, story-driven, the kind of puzzles that we always talk about liking. And there are some that are not so much like that.
Yeah, this game is like that. I think they tried a little bit harder with this game than some of their older games. There are some story-driven puzzles, but there are definitely some puzzles for puzzles' sake.
Yeah, that just feel like, this is an escape game, so do this jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
But
I don't think there's a jigsaw puzzle.
There is a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, never mind.
It's because I remember because I did it over in the lit corner of the room. So yeah, this game is kind of a mixed bag in terms of puzzles. Some of them were a little bit tedious.
Some of them were a lot tedious.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to be nice, but they are in theme with Asylum, kind of.
Loosely.
And
there are some that are really fun.
Yeah, we're obviously pretty harsh critics when it comes to that kind of thing, but since we played so many different games, we've seen a lot of different puzzles, and if something is tedious and cumbersome, it kind of just drives us insane. But that's not to say that figuring it out is not a satisfying thing, and then once you finish it and see how it all comes together, that is still fun. It's just the redundancy of some of the things can be a little frustrating at times.
Yeah, so overall, hit or miss with puzzles. Some of them are really fun, some of them were not. Last is overall experience. I think they do a pretty good job of creating a spooky atmosphere.
A very good job of creating a spooky atmosphere. Very spooky.
And that is really where this game shines. I'll say shines again.
It is where the game shines.
Yeah.
It is very spooky. The immersion is very well integrated as well. The production value is great. The puzzles are my least favorite part about this game. But overall, I really enjoyed it. And it's definitely one to check out for the spooky season if you want to get yourself in the mood for Halloween.
Yes, absolutely. I would definitely put it on your spooky list. Alright, the last game we have to talk about is the game formerly known as Friday the 13th.
And we say it like that because we were so excited to talk about Friday the 13th at Escape Room Live because we loved how they had so many different IPs in their games. They used to have a Ghostbusters game, they had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, a Titanic game, and a Friday the 13th game, all licensed IPs. And it looks like the only one they have left is Titanic. We don't know exactly what happened, but...
What happened is they lost the IP.
Anyway, we don't know the details of what happened. When we played this game in the summer of 2018, it was called Friday the 13th, and it was very Jason Camp Crystal Lake themed, and now it's just generic cabin. But I'm sure it's still the exact same game.
Yeah, I'm sure. So I'm going to read the very brief story. The cabin. Difficulty level 5 out of 10. 8 to 10 players? That seems like way too many. There's a maniac on the loose in the woods, otherwise known as Jason. You and your friends need to break into the cabin and lock yourself in before it's too late.
Yes, that sounds like the exact same game we played, minus the name Friday the 13th and minus Jason. Yes. Minus Jason is on the loose in the woods. Yeah. It's just maniac. But anyway, what I really liked about the story of this game, it's the opposite of an escape room. You're not trying to escape the room, you're trying to lock yourself in the room.
Yes, this was I don't know if it was your favorite. This was my favorite Escape Room Live game that we played.
It was my favorite in terms of the actual game, but the experience was not my favorite because we were fighting for the whole game. And it was also the only game we played there, just the two of us.
Yes. That's not true. What?
Yeah, it is.
No.
Yes.
See, guys, this is how the game was.
Titanic.
As I was saying, this was my favorite Escape Room Live game. And story-wise, what you said is exactly correct. Instead of escaping the room, you are locking yourself into a part of the room, which makes sense because Jason is on
The maniac.
is on the loose.
The maniac, formerly known as Jason.
Is on the loose, and you are trying to barricade yourself in and do things in order to prepare yourself for his arrival so you don't get slain.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they changed it to now, but when we played, the objectives of the game were clearly listed on an actual clipboard that said, like, Jason checklist. Like,
Now it probably says maniac checklist.
how to lock yourselves in. So while you were solving the puzzles and unlocking locks, the locks that you were taking off of the boxes that you were unlocking were the locks, I'm saying locks so many times in the sentence, that you put on the door to close yourself in. So there was 4 total, and once you put all 4 of the locks on the door and slam the door shut, then your timer ended.
Yes. Also, as a note, this game was 45 minutes long.
Yes, this game is 45 minutes long.
So, as for the story, that's pretty much it. You have to get into the cabin and lock yourself in and escape Jason the Maniac. I think they could have added, when we played it, I feel like you should have felt Jason's presence a little bit more than you did.
There was no Jason at all when we played. There was no jump scare of Jason. Yeah. There was no pictures or... Is that the machete? Is that the tool he used? The knife? I don't watch horror movies, guys. There was nothing of that. Mm-hmm. So it really, I mean, it could have been called The Cabin when we played, I guess.
Yeah, it just said, like, Jason's checklist and, like, Camp Crystal Lake and stuff like that. It wasn't... There was no actual Jason. So that would have been my critique of the immersion. I wanted like a jump scare in the window or something. That would have been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Or like approaching footsteps or something in like the soundtrack.
Yeah, but there wasn't any of that. I do agree that there should have been a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. It was cool that the actual puzzles were things that you would do to prepare. So that's kind of immersion-y.
Yeah, it wasn't just, puzzles for puzzles' sake.
Mm-hmm. The red herring was immersion breaking.
I really think that wasn't supposed to be there. I think they just didn't reset it.
It was. This is why we were fighting. This is the exact reason.
One thing that frustrates me about Escape Room Live is they intentionally put red herrings in their puzzles, and one red herring in this game in particular was the reason that we were fighting for the whole game, because I was like, it doesn't mean anything, and Jocelyn was so sure that it meant something, and
this is why I hate red herring.
And I was stressed because it was a 45-minute game, and there was no time left, and I was like, we're wasting our time on this red herring, and we had to ask for a clue, and we were mad. Just take out the red herrings. It's just so simple. There's just no reason to have it in a 45-minute game. You're going to intentionally misdirect people. But once we got over that, the rest of it was smooth sailing and very fun.
That's why it's so annoying, because the game was awesome, except for that. Like, and literally, all you had to do was pick it up, take it out of the game. Like, I could have fixed it in 30 seconds.
Yeah. And,
like, the game would have been great. It still is great. It's a great game. Just minus, they lose points for that.
If you do go play, just keep it in mind that if you think something for sure is part of a puzzle, that you're just missing a piece, or you don't know what to do with it and it's frustrating
or you don't think it's working.
Put it down and move on, because it probably is a red herring. So that's just something to keep in mind when you go play, if you ever do, at Escape Room Live, in all of their games, not just this game.
Yeah. Production value is incredible in this game. They do indoor-outdoor very well. In the outside part of the cabin, it has mulch. Wood chip. It's like rubber mulch.
Mm-hmm. Like the kind you would find in a playground.
Yeah, so that was awesome. And inside of the cabin also felt inside of a real cabin. not a fake cabin or a four white walled cabin.
Not as good as a Sasquatch cabin, but
No, not at all.
But this one was a different one. This was not the cabin in Sasquatch was supposed to be a rundown forest ranger situation, dilapidated cabin. This one was supposed to be a cabin at Camp Crystal Lake. Mm-hmm. So there was bunk beds and like
I wonder if it's just like camp now.
It's not. It's Camp Crystal Pake.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It just scratched it out. It just says camp.
Who knows? But this one, it just looked more like a generic cabin that you would sleep in at camp, which obviously, I mean, I actually don't know what that would be like because I've never slept
never
at
seen
camp.
The Parent Trap?
If you've seen The Parent Trap, you know what the cabin in this game looks like.
Yeah, it looks like that.
So I thought they delivered on what they wanted to achieve, and I thought it was great. There are some places that don't do outdoor escape room scenic very well, but Escape Room Live does a really convincing job in this game to make it look like you're outside. There's puzzles that involve like the campfire and
I really like that puzzle.
Things that you would do outside at camp, and then once you get inside the cabin...
Moving on to puzzles.
Once you get inside the cabin, you're going through your Jason checklist, which might just be generic maniac checklist now, and doing the different steps it says in order to prepare yourself for the maniac arrival. So that I thought was really cool.
I ranted a lot already about the red herring situation. Other than that, I thought the puzzles were great. Maybe like 7 out of 10.
For the difficulty scale?
No, for how much I like them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that when you have a 45-minute game, you can't have that many puzzles overall. Because for 45 minutes, people are generally escaping, what, in 35, 40 minutes? So if you think of a traditional 60-minute game, and how many puzzles there are in that, take off 15%.
Yeah.
Or they take off 25%, and that's how many puzzles are in this game. So they can't really be that challenging for you to finish in that amount of time.
Yeah, they weren't. I really liked putting the locks on the door and like the story things that you had to do, but there were a couple puzzles in between that were just kind of like filler puzzles that I wasn't really that into. But the bigger ones were a lot of fun.
Yeah, and from what I can remember, this game was a mostly lock and key type. There was some tech, but not super a lot. I know that matters to some people.
As far as overall experience, our experience was tainted because we were fighting the whole game, but that fight was caused because they want to put red herrings in their game, so really it was on them.
It's their fault. No, I mean, if we subtract that part from the situation, we really loved this game, and everything else was a seamless flow of the puzzles. We did finish in time, so that's a plus, even though I was afraid that we weren't going to.
I feel your residual anger.
I know, a year later, and I'm still glaring at you about it. But I really liked the overall vibe of Escape Room Live. It kind of feels like you're at a very well-organized restaurant.
Yeah, it's like, feels like restaurant attraction.
Yeah, like an attraction. That's what I was trying. Yeah. That's what I mean. It feels like you're at a very well organized attraction where you get there and there's a bar and there's places to hang out and photo booths and they give
lockers.
And lockers and they give you a beeper and they buzz you when your game is ready.
It's not a beeper. It's like a buzzer from the restaurants.
Okay, sorry that I didn't call it a buzzer. No, you get a buzzer.
Beeper makes me think about like pagers.
Right, that's why I didn't say pager.
Okay, whatever.
It beeps at you, whatever. It doesn't matter.
It does not beep.
Oh my... I swear to God. What I'm trying to say is that it's very well organized. It's very professional.
It also feels very corporate, though.
It does, but they only have 2 locations. They have the they have the Alexandria location and the Georgetown location. So it's not like a national corporate chain.
Right, I just mean, like, there's a very different feel when you go to a local venue and you're, like, talking to people there who will give you recommendations, or like having a conversation with the owner or the designer or something. That's a completely different experience than going to a place like Escape Room Live, which feels like you're taking a ticket number.
Right, yeah. For a lot of enthusiasts really like to talk to owners and give feedback and recommendations and all of that when they're playing their games or after they play their game, and you don't really get that here. But that's not to say that it was negative in any way, it's just different. And we mentioned this when we talked in our road trip episode about when we visited Escape Room Live, that it's very difficult to get a private game here. They get so many walk-ins and they're so busy and they're so popular. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you go. If you are one of those people that does not like to play with strangers, it's very difficult to not play with strangers when you go here.
All right. Anything else you want to say about them? Or about Friday the 13th / the cabin?
No, I don't have any more thoughts about the generic cabin. It's another really great option for the spooky season.
It's fun also if you go into it and you're like, and you pretend that it's still Friday the 13th, and just imagine where everywhere it says Maniac, it says Jason instead. You'll get the same experience.
Yeah, this is true. All right, so in addition to the games that we just talked about, I wanted to briefly mention 2 other scary games that we really love, and those are Scorched at Outer Life Studios and Skinned Alive at Escape Thrill. And both of those are in the Tampa, St. Pete area. And the only reason we didn't talk about them in detail in this episode is because we already talked about them in detail in our top 5 Tampa Games episode. So if you're interested in hearing more about those spooky games, head on over to that episode and hear about them there. I also wanted to quickly mention some other scary games in the Orlando area that we did not review in this episode. And the reason we didn't review them is because either myself or Jocelyn have worked at these venues and we want to keep these reviews as unbiased as possible. So we're choosing to not review any games at a venue where we have previously worked. So with that being said, the first game that we wanted to mention is at Escape Artists, and it's called Baldwin Manor. And this is a really great spooky, not scary game that we both really loved.
Also, I've been working on a project at Doldrix, which is a Halloween mini game. It's called Spoopy's Ghoulish Graveyard Games.
Say that 5 times fast.
Not to be confused with Guy's Grocery Games.
The other triple G in our lives.
Which should be opening soon for the Halloween season, so if you are local, keep an eye out for that. It will definitely be spoopy.
Not scary, again.
Yeah.
And what does mini game mean?
It's 30 minutes instead of an hour.
Yeah. Just thought we'd put that out there. Okay, so do you have any final thoughts about spooky, scary, awesome games?
I really want to go to Escape the Netherworld.
Oh my gosh. There's also a brand new game that they just opened up a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago at this point, called
Tiki,
like the something about the shark god, which looks really, really cool. And they also have a game that's called Haunted, which is, I think, directly ghosty,
yes. So stay tuned for our reviews of those at some point in the future.
We definitely will play them. I don't know if I can say that we're going to play them soon, but they're at the top of our must-do list. And as always, if you have any recommendations for us to go play, or if there is a game that you really want us to review, please let us know on any kind of social media or through our email.
Yep, and you can follow us on social media at Escapeexpeditions on Instagram, at ESC Expeditions on Twitter. We also have a Facebook page, and you can email us at escapeexpeditionscontact@gmail.com.
Woohoo! Thank you so much for staying tuned and listening to our opinions on these spooky, scary, awesome games.
And stay tuned for the rest of our spooky, scary Halloween content.
Yay!
Have a great week.
Bye.
Your destination is on your left. The end of this podcast.